Welcome to the Lose Your Mind podcast. We are with you today for another episode, and today we are talking about feelings
We are, and nothing more than.
and how important it is to feel all of them.
It is indeed. Even the ones that we don't like.
I know, and I think that's a really great place to start, actually, Alan, because so often when we think about feelings, we just want all the fluffy stuff, don't we?
We do. But they're
But
not all fluffy, are they?
no,
Do you think that's why people are so loath to explore their feelings or say they're not good with feelings?
I definitely think so. I think people want to feel good, which is natural. But I think the thing that's often missed is to feel good. We have to move through being aware of all the different feelings.
Mhm.
And that's where we get more of the nice things. But the mountain to climb to get there feels so big, when you haven't been that way or moved through things in this kind of mindfully aware place.
So why is it important? Why are feelings important from your
Well,
perspective?
I personally feel they are like messengers. So beneath the feeling, we've got our emotions, many different layers to that. But we look at things so black and white or label things so simply, but we're really complex people. I mean, we don't even know the half of what our mind's capable of, even what the depths of what's in our heart, really, and how much is in there that we can access to have freedom from things. And I think the feelings are messengers. And when we ignore them, it takes us into a place of discomfort and we don't want to sit there. Whereas when we notice a feeling, we don't have to become it or get consumed by it. We're just sort of checking in, just being a bit curious about what that feeling is, leaning in to what's going on. And I just think from a mindful perspective, there's so much we can discover from whatever the feeling is. I mean, take anger. We've all felt angry. I mean, I'm sure you have. Have you at some point?
No, no, never, never.
Never. Well, most people except for you, Alan, have felt angry at times. And beneath that anger is often a messenger, isn't it? You take a angry child at school that loses a game of sport or something, you know, and beyond that, there could be so much sat behind that, their parent not approving them for something, needing validation or wanting to be listened to, and the rewards come in the fact that they might have won. So it's not necessarily about the winning, it's about all the different layers behind that. And then the anger kind of presents itself if they know they're not going to get to that place to get the reward. So there's just so much. Give me your thoughts on it.
Well, so what you're saying is the messenger is tells you what the kind of symptom of anger, if you like. It's a message that there's something lying deeper within. And it's not
Mm.
necessarily in that example losing the game of sport. It's what it means. It's what the consequences are of that. Yeah, I can get that. Um, to answer your question, my thought on it is, yeah, I've always been quite afraid of feelings. When as a kind of guy, then
Kind of
talk
guy.
a kind of
Verifying
guy.
you're a guy.
Yeah, I'm a guy. I'm a guy. Well, I don't. Well, because I was hesitant because I don't want to speak for all guys, you know, but very often we are uncomfortable with feelings, and I think probably that's it for me is that because if you do investigate them, you might uncover something you don't like or you're afraid of, and I think that's why we shy away from talking about them. Plus, it could be cultural as well because we don't, we have our like brave faces and we have our war paint on, and we need to show people that we're strong and logical and non-emotional. But my take is that, and the more I've read and researched on this topic, you cannot escape feelings because feelings are intrinsic within us and it's from our nervous system where the feelings come from. And we had a nervous system before we had a brain. So it's when we feel, when we feel safe or we feel unsafe, and I know we've talked about that in another podcast as well. It's something you can't help. It's something that's in there, and it finds its way through to our thoughts and through to our behaviors and our actions as like almost like a kind of a process. And the feeling kicks off the process, and the feeling plus the thought that comes out of that is the emotion, isn't it? Have I got that the right way around? I can't remember, but it's a mishmash of all these things, and the feeling is
Mm.
the thing that comes first because that's very, very primal and is a very, very quick response to things. Sometimes a learned response, a conditioned response, but sometimes it's just so reactive and primal.
No, I agree. And I do think from a female perspective here that I know that it appears that women are far more comfortable sharing how they feel and being more open. But I think in general, there is still that level of discomfort. Lots of people, and I know I have, sat in a place of shame or fear about what other people may think, not sharing my feelings properly. If you've, had a default kind of generic message fed to you through your life about whatever that may be, not good enough or not worthy or all these kind of things, it's really difficult to express the feelings that are inside because you're permanently just trying to keep yourself protected, aren't you, in this bubble because you don't want to let that out. But the feelings are there. And I do think historically, and I can't speak for all women, but women are generally more open to connecting about how they feel. But there is a huge rise for men. Like, I don't know about in your area, but I know there are a lot of men's circles opening up here about, where men can just have a cup of tea and talk about how they feel. It only takes one person to kick that off. And then that safety is building, isn't it? So that we can explore, like all of us, what these feelings are.
So tell me what you think the problem is with not exploring them.
Well, I get criticized for exploring them too much.
Who
Now I've gone
criticizes you?
many a person. I'm naming no
Okay.
names on the podcast, but I feel, I'm so open to it, but I just think it can be difficult to explore the feelings, can't it? We're afraid of it because, like you correctly said, and I agree with, we've got a lot in there and we're scared of what's going to come up. And to be honest with you, the moment you start opening up, it's quite scary because something will come up and you're aware of it. And then it will lead you to something else where you think, hang on, why have I done this for so long? Now I know I can do this. And then gradually things start to change and shift. But I feel there's got to be a huge element of trust in these feelings to just take us to where we need to go. Because then naturally you have more good feelings and way more, meaningful experiences that just feel really kind of aha, that's it, because you're able to move through them. But it's difficult. I mean, it's really hard to feel into, particularly past experiences. And as mindfulness teachers, you and I, we're talking about being in the present the best we can. But sometimes you're in the present, really aware of a previous memory. So you can be present with something previous, which is something I've been unpicking a bit myself recently. You go into a memory and it's like, okay, well, I want to be present with this. But so there's
Mm.
there's a part of you that's somewhere else, connecting to these experiences, attached to the feelings, the emotions come up. But being present with it, you're not then lost. I don't know if that made any sense to the question you even asked me, but
No, no, it does. I've got a couple of questions to ask you because you've used a couple of terms, and I know you've used one before, lean into, right? And also you just said feel into then.
mm,
So I think I got what you said about the being present with a previous memory. And by being present, you mean accept it, don't you? And
yes.
not try and push it away, not allow yourself to judge it, but just try and recall what that made you feel and makes you feel like now. Is that what you were talking about?
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Okay. No, that's
Thank
all
you for
right.
summarizing my
No,
waffle. No, I
I'm
know.
so sorry. No, but tell us what you mean by feel into. I think it's important because it's one thing knowing what feelings are, which I hope we've explained that. It's like it's something deep within you that you can't even really help. It's just something you feel light or you feel dark, you feel safe, you feel unsafe. You can't help that, can you? It just happens to you. And then what happens then usually arises as a result of that feeling. Yeah? Are we on the same page?
We are on the same page
Okay.
for this subject,
For
yes.
this subject, it's a rare thing. Hey.
We're on the same page because they're leaning in to that, to those feelings. So, like you just said, we'll have this sense, won't we? It's like, when you just feel something's a bit off.
Hmm.
We've all had that. Have you ever had that where you can't explain it, you don't know what it is, but you just feel a bit off?
Oh yeah.
So, if you allow your head to go with that feeling, I was going to swear then, but I won't. But you're done for, right? Solely.
Yeah.
But if you feel into that feeling and you pause with it and you come out of your head and into your body, which is what movement and yoga and meditation do for us, you're feeling into these places. So just say you've got a feeling of, give me a feeling.
A feeling.
Yeah, that you might
I,
have
f-
felt today.
I feel afraid.
What,
Not
sitting
right,
here with
not right
me?
now, not right now. But that would be an
People
example
are
of a
switch off at
feeling.
this point.
Yeah.
So you feel it, yeah. So feeling afraid, for example, if I asked you to think about being afraid, you might go through a series of images. You might attach to past memories. Would that be accurate to say?
If you ask me to
To think about being
think
afraid.
about, yeah, yeah, a time when I was afraid.
Yeah. So what would
Yeah.
happen for you if you thought about that? Just in summary.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to recall some other situation where you felt afraid.
Yeah. So if I asked you to feel into being afraid, so if you closed your eyes for a second and I said, okay, so if you initially go to this place where you're feeling afraid, can you locate a sensation in your body that calls for your attention when you go to the thoughts of being afraid? So the images might come, but move into the sensation, yeah?
Yeah. I can't right now, but I've done that before.
And then beyond that, though, you then go beyond the sensation into the emotion, and then you can learn what it's trying to tell you without being attached to it. So when I think about leaning in, or if I were to share this experience with someone that's moving through something like fear or anxiety, it would be, okay, can we just for a moment just feel into this, what's happening? And then actually go to the opposite of that is like the most powerful thing I'm personally working with at the minute. Like, what's the opposite of afraid? So it's different for everyone. What would you say it is?
What is the opposite of afraid? I don't can't think of a word actually. Because there could be so many.
Well,
Well,
there's no right
brave,
or wrong.
bold or brave, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. So for you, it would be bold or brave. I would have probably immediately gone to something like safe, but it's the same thing, isn't it? It's
Okay.
that strength,
Yeah.
you know. So then if you were to explore again, dip into what you're feeling, what does brave feel like? Can you feel a sensation in your body that feels brave?
Not
That,
right now, but I can imagine that.
yeah. But that might feel uncomfortable then. And then we start to understand that we feel safe in the
Mm.
discomfort because we feel it so often, and that the opposite is actually quite alien because people don't want to do it. And it's really powerful bringing them together and meeting. So when I talk about, back to the question you asked, leaning in, feeling into it, is to kind of just drop into my body to try and understand what's happening there for me.
Okay. So it's understand what's happening, but it's also then move through it into some more helpful feeling.
Yeah,
Is that a kind of a
because,
reprogramming of yourself?
well, kind of. So sort of through restoration and yoga nidra and all the deep rest and things that I'm trying to get an understanding of now, I think a bit similar to you, with the deeper mindfulness that we've spoken about and the feeling tones. I mean, I think it'd be really helpful if at this point you could share a bit about that because it kind of interlinks in with we're talking about feelings, aren't we? Now, what is a feeling tone?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So, what you're referring to, deeper mindfulness, is a work by Professor Mark Williams and Danny Penman. They wrote The Mindfulness Finding Peace in a Frantic World. And I think that's an excellent book. And I think the deeper mindfulness, which goes further into feeling tone based on new neuroscience discovered, if you like, since that first book came out. And the feeling tone is what they talk a lot about in there. And it's a tremendously powerful thing because mindfulness encourages you to be with what is, but just go that little bit deeper and say, because the feeling tone is something, as I described, you can't really do a lot about it. It is just something that happens to you depending on your body state at the time. It's usually a body state, isn't it? Rather than a mind state. So, for example, if you're hungry, then you may have a negative feeling of being hungry, and that would dictate what comes after that. So it's very easy to get lost in the feeling and then the tangle of thoughts that and emotions that arise from that. Whereas if you learn to meditate upon it and say, what am I feeling right now? And is it pleasant? Is it unpleasant? Or is it neutral? If it's pleasant, we tend to want to hang on to pleasant feelings, even though they will dissipate at some point. We want to push unpleasant feelings away because, as we said right at the start, you don't like them. But if you do that, then you start to avoid things in life and you don't have a full range of, you're not emotionally flexible or intelligent. If it's neutral, it means you just doesn't mean anything to you. You've tuned it out, right? So the point behind this, I think, to summarize, is if something's pleasant, it's pleasant. Great. Okay. Understanding that is good. If something is unpleasant, sorry, I couldn't get my words out there. I must have been too excited. If something's unpleasant, then you'd say to yourself, okay, I register that, but I'm not going to judge the experience. And it's okay to feel like this. And if it's not hunger, it might be something that I feel depressed or I feel dark about something or I feel sad. But you say to yourself, it's okay to feel that way. I'm not supposed to
Mm.
like this. And then you take the pressure off getting entangled in trying to solve the problem. So that's what they're trying to say in that book is your brain tries to logically solve these problems, which can't be because they're deep. And I think this is the thing with mindfulness generally is that a lot of stuff that happens to you just can't help. You just have to go with it. And I think what a useful byproduct of this is that I've done this exercise lots of times. It's a meditation where you say, what's the feeling tone here? What's the feeling tone in the body? What's the feeling tone of things you can hear around you? What's the feeling tone in your mind? Is that thought pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? And actually, if you come across a thought that you originally thought was unpleasant, you suddenly somehow switch and say, it's not as unpleasant as I thought it was, actually. And I've just made it into a drama, with my reaction to it. So
Mm.
I think my perspective is it's really useful to tune into these feelings because you can unpick them, examine them, and then you just move on quickly without trying to let your brain get entangled in them because it has no business
Mm.
being there.
That's so right. So basically, is what you're saying there is that the feeling tone is, for example, the pleasant, the unpleasant, or the neutral, or good, bad, or whatever the thing is. And then would you say that that then takes you slightly one step out so that you're just kind of aware rather than in it?
Yeah, that's the point, so that you are aware of what's going on and you can maintain some distance and detachment from it. I
Yeah.
mean, if you've got a good feeling, then great, celebrate that. But it's not going to last forever. part of mindfulness is about the equanimity of you're going to feel good sometimes, you're not going to feel so good other times, but it will pass, when the bad times pass. So yeah, it's exactly what you said. It's not getting lost.
I think it's great that there's so many different things that are almost leading back to the same thing. So, to summarize here for anyone's listening, and we could leave people with some useful tips, you sharing about the feeling tones and your position, even from a male perspective, about not feeling comfortable to necessarily talk about your feelings. A step you could essentially take first would be to do a practice like this. You don't have to sit in a room initially if you feel uncomfortable, but you can start to explore your feelings in a comfortable place and just start to notice them or label them, and then the opposites naturally occur. And that's what I'm noticing from the other side, leaning into these different feelings and the sensations. It's working with those opposites again. However that looks, it's like, oh, what's the opposite of that? Could I possibly play with that a little bit? And for anybody listening, I think something they could really take away from this is that the simple fact of just being present for a moment, welcoming all the feelings, and just, sitting back almost like, do you remember you shared a meditation a long time ago about on the stage and things on the stage? You could almost just lay your feelings out, couldn't you?
Yeah,
A little one by one. What would
yeah.
you leave people with as a first step to explore feelings comfortably? Well, not even comfortably, but the fact that being open to it is more helpful than we think.
Yeah, I mean, big fan of obviously doing guided meditations that lead you in this direction. You can get used to simply tuning in. You know, what am I feeling right now? And just, as you said, exploring what's going on in the body rather than the mind, understanding what the mind's reaction is to that. It increases your self-awareness no end. And
Mm,
that's really what it's all about. And also you increase your self-compassion at the same time because you start to say, well, this is fine. I'm only human.
yeah. And then I think from there, the strength comes to start sharing because I've seen a couple of really interesting articles recently about we don't heal in isolation, we heal in connection.
Okay.
And I keep coming back to that. And it's like this tiny step is connecting with yourself, isn't it? To explore how you feel, what tone that might have, what's going on in there. And like you said, bringing a bit of compassion because there is movement in the body, like the energy that's moving through does feel lighter, even if the actual thing is unpleasant. There's a shift, and that gives a bit of freedom.
Brilliant. What a way to end it. Any
We'll wrap
further
it up
words of
there.
wisdom?
I
Let's
don't
wrap it
think
up.
so.
I think there's been
I
enough
think
words of wisdom to be quite honest. So yeah, it's probably more than people can take. But anyway, we hope you've enjoyed listening to this Lose Your Mind
well,
podcast, and we'll be back, won't we, Kelly? Talking about
we are going to be talking about that's a really good question, Alan. We're going to be talking about habits. We've touched on this before, but multitasking. Um, and then we've only got one more final episode left of the series after that, I believe.
there you go.
So stay tuned, stick with us. We'll be back.
We'll be back. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.